Okay, good morning, everybody. How's sound good? Rebecca, my sound good? All right. So, good to be with everybody. Hope everybody had a great weekend. And before we start, please remember to chat in and along the way, because as we've always talked about, the insights that you all have when you share are really amazing, and they help everybody else. And typically, if you've got a question or if you've got a thought, those are typically the same thoughts that others have. So, and I'm kind of looking forward to this morning. It will be a little short, but it will be a lot of fun. So, we're talking about alignment, and what is alignment? And so we went to our good friend Wikipedia, right, which we all do nowadays, right? And alignment, by definition, is the proper positioning or state of adjustment of the parts, right? So it's about how we fit. Okay. So when we are in alignment with things, either in a mechanical sense, or in an interpersonal sense or situational sense, it's kind of like when we're all on the same page, and when kind of the gears of whatever we're working on, whether it's a mutual understanding or whether it's a project or whether it's putting two pieces of lumber together when we're building a house, right? Those are all about alignment. And then of course then you have misalignment. So when we're not in alignment is when events, relationships and outcomes don't connect. And I'm sure this image was photoshopped, but it's kind of a cool image, right? And um, so when we're not in alignment is when things are just not connecting. And I think, like, at a personal level, like, we know that. Like, we know when we're in a situation and just something's just not right. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's bad. We're just missing it somehow. Either I'm miscommunicating. I always think the communication process with people is like completely fascinating, because you can get two people speaking the exact same language, wanting the same outcome. They don't want a different outcome. They want the exact same outcome. Okay. But they're not in alignment in their words. And the English language, or all language really, is kind of difficult, because how we speak, and something I've worked on over the years and still have a long ways to go with it. I don't think you will ever really finish this type of work, is being able to articulate things in a way that the recipient can understand. I remember early on when I was doing public speaking, um, I got a little bit of coaching from a friend of mine, and kind of what she told me was, it's really not up to the audience to figure out what you're saying. It's really up to you to figure out how the audience is going to understand it. And I think those are kind of really good lessons in alignment. And when we're not in alignment, okay. Now, this is the part. The next couple of slides are going to be kind of fun, and so you can quietly poke fun at yourself. Is that when we're not in alignment, we are more likely, okay, to keep pushing harder and harder to make that connection, okay, by pushing our point harder. All right. And we keep doing more of the same that's not working. So when we're not in alignment, right, what we find is that we push a little harder, and we keep doing the same thing over. We keep doing more of the same thing, which isn't working in the first place. Okay, because if it was working in the first place, you'd be in alignment. And so kind of, I always think it's a really interesting thing. Like, I know with myself that when I'm in a situation where things are not connecting, that I stop immediately, because I'm not going to keep pushing this point, because the harder we push on this is basically, in essence, is the more we keep doing more of the same, which isn't working in the first place. Okay. And I think that's what happens when we're out of alignment in a particular circumstance. I think especially interpersonally, where, again, it doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean any of that. Really, what it means is that somehow we're just not connecting. We've got to take a step back and figure out, stop doing what we're currently doing and figure out a different way to view things. And we'll talk about that in just a slide, in the closing slide. But I think it's also funny if you've ever traveled, especially overseas, to a different country, where a different language is spoken, and like if you've ever been like, to Europe, for instance. I've been to Europe, a few times, and people who don't understand the language, like you'll see, especially Americans, right? Because we're so spoiled, they'll start yelling at people, like you're in Italy, and the American will start yelling at the person because they don't understand. It's like, well, you can yell all you want, but if you don't, if the person doesn't understand your language, you can keep yelling all you want. It's not going to matter. Or it's like raising your voice, in a more domestic sense. When we're not in alignment, we tend to raise our voice, like that's going to matter. Okay, like by raising my voice, that's actually going to get you to understand what I'm saying. It's kind of funny if you think about it, and we can all catch ourselves doing it. And so, I would kind of challenge everyone, as you have a situation, just kind of watch as a situation where, something's not working out, or you're not kind of communicating properly. Then, you watch your own behavior. Your voice kind of comes up a little bit, you lean forward, it's kind of funny, but that doesn't mean you're gonna, those are not necessarily successful strategies to help people, help you and whoever you're working with become in alignment of things. But I always think that, the example of someone who doesn't, two people who don't speak the same language, and they're not, clearly they're not connecting with each other. What do? They start yelling at each other in their native languages, like that's going to matter, So I always think that's kind of funny. So, so we got a couple chats in here. So, and Jody, is that a real? So you saying that's a real bridge? That's kind of funny. Yeah, Christine, excellent. Yeah, stop talking and start listening. Yeah, know your audience, super important. Yeah, Allie, speak louder or speak slower, right? That's true. I think it's kind of funny. I was putting this together yesterday morning. I was having a lot of fun doing it because I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about a couple of scenes, when I've been overseas that I witnessed with people, especially we Americans, right, yelling at people. Okay, so how do we become alignment? So here are kind of 4 strategies to become in alignment. So, and I think somebody had mentioned this in the chat, take a step back and listen to the feedback you're getting, but you have to listen to it from a different perspective, not your current perspective, because you have to remember, you're out of alignment because of your current perspective. And if you want the other person who, I'm just going to use this as a personal example, okay? I mean, for 2 people, if you want the person you're partnered with in this alignment process, because once 2 people or a group of people, right? Once you enter an environment where you're having a conversation, okay, and you need to have like consensus for an outcome, or you need to somehow find a way to move forward, you are partnered with that person or that group of people, okay? And so really it's incumbent upon you, because you're only responsible for you, you're not responsible for anybody else. It's incumbent upon you, okay, to find that different perspective, okay, not the current one, because the current one doesn't work. So you might as well just crumple up, throw it away, okay? It doesn't work. And then you can better understand and see where others are coming from, or even where you're coming from, by taking in that information from a different perspective. So you're basically reorientating yourself so let me back up for a second. So you have to change your perspective, okay, and not use the current one. And then when you have your new perspective, okay, then you're taking in that information from a different viewpoint. And it's pretty amazing how, from a different viewpoint, okay, the same information, the very same information, okay, makes more sense from a different orientation, okay? Instead of true north, maybe you're 10 degrees off, or whatever the case may be. but you're looking at it from just a different perspective. And many times I have this habit of reading things. Well, actually, I'll give you a real example. So I'm a level 2 Reiki, and I was starting my master Reiki attunements, and then COVID hit, so I had to go on the shelf. But I just got done listening. I bought this book about kind of Reiki audiobook for Reiki for beginners. Okay. And I listened to it before I started, and it kind of warmed me up to some concepts and all that stuff. I listened to it afterwards. I just got done listening to it again. So this is a year and a half, almost 2 years later. Okay. And it was amazing just the different perspective I had on it. Okay. And how much more I got out of it. So just a slight, and that was for beginners, and I probably practice Reiki 3 or 4 times a week. And so just changing your orientation just a little bit, okay, will bring value to the exact same information that you've gotten in the old perspective that didn't make a lot of sense. All right. I think the next one, number 3, the third paragraph down here, I think is really important, is stop defending your position. So you got to take your ego and you got to park it over here someplace. Okay, put a pin in it and stop defending your position. Because when you let go of your position, which is leading you, which at some level, okay, if there's 2 people involved in a conversation and neither one of you are getting it, all right, you're both 50% responsible. So at some level, defending your current position is not leaving room, okay, for a new perspective. So for you to make space, okay, in the ether, if you're to make space for something new, you have to remove the old. It doesn't mean you forget the old, and it doesn't mean the old wasn't valuable. It just means you have to make room for it. And when you stop defending your position and you make room, okay, for somebody else's viewpoint, or you make room for a new perspective, that's when all the information rushes in, because you've given it the signal. I'm ready. Yeah, come. I'm ready to receive something new. Okay. And I think what happens is, which I still think is humorous, the example of somebody not understanding what you're saying, and you start, raising your voice, and eventually if it gets heated enough, you start yelling at them. Well, that's defending your position. You're yelling at somebody or raising your voice or some other type of, kind of aggressive or passive aggressive behavior because somebody's not getting what you're saying. That's not making more room. That's actually piling sandbags. Okay. And so stop defending the position. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay. There's no judgment in any of this. It just means that your position and the other person's position are not in alignment, and you've got to make room, okay, for a new perspective. All right. Once you make room for a new perspective, all sorts of information will flow to you. And then lastly, and these are not my, this last paragraph, the other 3 paragraphs are my words. This 4th paragraph is not is not mine, but I don't know really where it came from, but I've had it in my thought process for years. I almost want to say it's an Eckhart Tolle quote, but sometimes you can be right, or you can have the right outcome, but you can't have both. So do you want to be right, or do you want to have the right outcome? Because sometimes you can't be right and have the right outcome. And at the end of the day, being in alignment is actually not about being right. It's about the right outcome. I think that's the most important part. And that's where we stop defending, right? And when we defend ourselves, it's our ego talking. Okay. So when we stop defending our position and letting our ego control the position, and we take a step back, make room for a new perspective, then all of a sudden we're not as worried about being right. Now all we want is the right outcome. And at the end of the day, the right outcome is what's most important. Let's see how we're doing for chats. Oh, that's a Chopra quote. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's, yeah, I've had that for years. Yeah. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so that's it for today. Good to be with everybody, and we're going to have great weather this week. So hope everybody gets a chance to get out and take a walk and you know, get some sun and start to kick off these winter cobwebs. So have a great week. Good to be with everybody. Take care.